to season 4 of Caroline Rena and the Ride of My Life podcast and blog. And this season is going to include my story and how I ended up taking this journey, and different suggestions by way of my continuing my healing journey, mind, body, and soul, and being able to find peace and self-love and to expand my life more and express myself more, and then share that with you so you have some choices and ways to see what resonates with you. So welcome, and I'm glad you're here. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about my story, as I said, and then I'll give some information of some of the things that I learned from it once I'm done. So have any of you heard of parental alienation? You know what that is? So when I say it, let me know, just shake your head up. So parental alienation is basically, it can happen within a divorce, or it can happen within an intact family. So basically one parent is alienating the other parent by lying to or not telling the whole truth to the children. So my story, that happened with me. And in order for me to start my journey, apparently that was supposed to happen for me with the relationships that I had within that situation. And so they started pushing me out of their lives. That was 20 years ago. And I can't remember the exact date. I think I started about then to start taking this journey. So it's been a catalyst for me. And it wasn't easy. It was very painful. And it did bring me on a path, a journey to learn more about myself, learn more about healing. I did mostly everything outside of myself, where I would go to churches, different churches, see what that would work. I would do Native American ceremony, sweat lodges, different things like that, and read books, and I tried everything. I even came here about 5 years ago a few times. And so what ended up happening was my children, my son, out of his life when he was 14. He didn't want anything to do with me based off of the things that he was going through. My daughter, and then he ended up having his stepmother adopt him when he was 18. Then my daughter, similar situation where, but at 13 or 14, stepmother requested that she would be able to adopt her. And it broke my heart. And I went through a lot of pain losing my children. And I didn't take drugs. I had a good job. I had everything other than that going for me. I was actually in the military at the time. And I just got to the point where I said about my ex-husband, I was like, I'm not gonna go into a rubber room for him. He's not gonna win. I'm not gonna do this. I don't even like the word win, because there's no win or loss in that situation, in parental alienation. And just to let you know, there's about 25 million parents just in the United States alone that go through this. I'm also in a documentary called Erasing Family, and was interviewed because my son and I got our relationship back. So what that did for me, especially because of my childhood upbringing, I didn't have a connection with my mother. There was a mother wound. I don't know if you've heard of that or not, but that would be something to look at. It was a very powerful mother wound because she was Czechoslovakian. She was born in Czechoslovakia. She ended up moving to Germany, so I was born in Germany. And during that time, she didn't know how to raise me. She was so lost because she had gone through World War II and had so many experiences from World War II that it affected her. So there's more loss within that. She couldn't have relationships with people. She was always so angry. And watching and learning from her was a big deal for me, because I was angry with her. I stopped. She left my life via my father at 12, I believe, and was out of my life until about 5 years ago. And I did a lot of personal development and healing work down here, got to the point where I was able to forgive my mother because of the fact that she couldn't be a mother. I was not nurtured. I didn't know how to be intuitively I knew how to be a mother, but I didn't have any kind of relationship with her. So all of that brought a lot of fear of loss for me, because my mother, when I was born, I found out she left me she was a Red Cross volunteer in a German hospital and left me to go take care of the other patients. So there was always this energetic fear of loss from the beginning. And so my relationships, my desperation of staying in relationships so I wouldn't lose people, got me to, into the space where I had to control everything because I felt so out of control. And because there was so much loss. And what I discovered also in this path was I'm highly sensitive. If you've ever done any research on being a highly sensitive person, there's a website you can look up. Yeah. Well, I came to find out that there's 27 traits and I have 26 of them. So I can feel everything. I can feel people's pain emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. I can feel that. And sometimes I think it's mine, and it's not. And it took me many years to figure out that it wasn't. And so when you're traumatized as a child, these are the things that I've learned. When you're traumatized as a child and you're highly sensitive, it actually affects your nervous system, and it makes it harder. It can make it harder for the healing process to work. So now, fast forward to the last about year and a half, I've been doing deeper dive into my healing process, and I traveled around the United States from West Virginia to Florida, back up to North Carolina, Kentucky, Oklahoma, Colorado, and then back, basically the same direction back down here. And in that time, I stayed with people who were actually doing healing work with me through trauma, and I was sharing that on the podcast with people. And because there's so much challenge going on right now with mental health, and everything that happened with the pandemic and Black Lives Matter and you name it, everything that's been going on over the last couple of years has been very traumatizing for people. And that stacks. What happens when we have trauma as children, it stacks. And it pushes our emotions down because we never really learned how to deal with the emotions. So that's where everything gets caught up in here. And we don't know what to do with it because no one ever taught us. So me being the highly sensitive person I am, cried at everything. I cried at the drop of a hat. So in the process, though, I learned a couple of things. And I thought that this was really important because it kind of branches off of something that Mimo was talking about two weeks ago, I think, similarly. So what I see it as, we meet people in our lives for a reason. We are on this planet because we're here to raise consciousness, our consciousness, spiritual consciousness, connection with others, connection with the planet, connection with a higher power, whatever that looks like for you. And when we meet people or have relationships with people, we have choices. And those choices lead us into a couple of things, and that's what I wanted to talk about. Was the first thing, we can go against our natural state, which is love inside, agape love. It's unconditional. That's who we are inside of us. But we don't know that because we've had all these traumas stacked on top of us. So all we know or remember in our nervous system are the traumas. So what happens is when we're going through life and we're trying to have these relationships and something comes up and it triggers something inside of us, we're just trying to maintain a sense of balance within ourselves related to the other person. So it's not, the other person is more like, I would say, a mirror, kind of showing us what we need to heal within ourselves. And the people who challenge us, it's happening for a reason. And that, like I said, that reason is because of our need to connect with the agape love. And so what happens is we have this reason, we have this thing, this situation happen, whether it's an opportunity with something that happens in our life or with a person, we have it to learn love and compassion for ourselves first. And that's so important, because if we can't love or have compassion for ourselves, we're a mess. And when we're a mess, then we can't put who we really are out into the world. And it can be challenging if we're not aware of what's happening or our purpose to being on this planet. If we don't understand what that is, then we don't know what to do with it, right? And so the connection with self and the higher power in the universe gets lost, because we're so focused on trying to figure our daily life out that we can't see anybody else for who they are, or especially ourselves. And that's not fair to ourselves either, especially because you're the most important person in your life. If you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. And so what this talks about is like we feel separated. We feel separated, especially from ourselves. We feel separated from other people. We feel separated from God. We feel separated from everything. Sometimes we just feel isolated and alone, and can't figure out why that's happening. And so we're looking for the connection, and the connection starts here within ourselves. And the only way, as I mentioned earlier, I did all this external, searching and looking and trying to find everything, and I found it here inside of me. And that was the only thing that helped me to start understanding that. And so what's inside is a phrase that I use all the time. It's the truth of who you are. That's your truth. That's the real thing. It's not the daily stuff. It's not anything out there. It's all in here, and that's why meditation is so important, so you can connect with that truth of who you are. It goes so deep. It's down to the cells. It's all at the cellular level. And I heard something on meditation that I listened to a few days ago. It's so small that they're like little pockets of consciousness, your cells. And your cells capture everything, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. And unless we take care of ourselves in all of those areas, our cells are sick. And they don't feel good, and neither do we. And that's how our bodies run. And that's how our minds run. And so the cells are there to help guide us through our existence. And so when we have like a feeling or an emotion come up, it's just a guidance system. It's just something that's going to tell you, for example, if you get angry at somebody, rage is not good. Anger is there for a reason. Rage is something where you are so built up that you can't even control yourself and you lash out at something or somebody. But anger is there. It's a passion. It helps you lead your life. It helps you decide to take care of something. If something feels bad to you and you want to change it, that's what anger is for. But it's not there to hurt somebody else. And it's also there to protect your boundaries. So as you learn about yourself and you heal yourself and you learn the truth about yourself, you're more able to stand up for yourself if someone breaks a boundary that you've set for yourself. So it's important to understand that. And the more you know yourself, the more you're able to set those boundaries when people start, if you don't want to do something, say no. I can tell you real quick a story. I was working in the military, and at that point in time, I did not know how to say the word no. So a friend of mine at work, I was saying yes to everything. A friend of mine at work took an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper and wrote the word no on it, got some Scotch tape and stuck it to my chest, and he said, okay, now walk around and don't say anything. If somebody walks up to you, just go like this. And I was like, okay. So I did, and that's where I learned how to say no. And I also had to learn who I was and what I wanted for my life, and who I learned about, how I learned about myself and who I am, to be able to do that, because sometimes it's really hard to say no, especially to family members, and sometimes you have to. And there's sadness. I've also learned that sadness is just a thing for endings. It's just there to help us walk through an ending. And what's interesting, I'm picking the two emotions, anger and sadness, because what I've also discovered, and see if you feel this for in your own world, but generally for men, sadness is below the anger. Anger sits on top of sadness. So men, because they were not, a lot of men were not taught to cry or taught to be sad, especially in this country. The anger sits on top, and if something triggers you, that's what comes out first, because you've never released the grief, you've never released the pain. And I started to recognize this. And then for women, it's sadness sitting on top of anger. So we are taught, especially in this country, to not get angry. It's not ladylike. You can't get angry. And so for many years, I didn't even know how to get angry. And finally, when I got angry, it was a good thing. It felt really good, you know? But that also helped release the sadness. It helped open that up. And so I just wanted to give you a little taste of, you know, the anger and sadness that go together, because when you grieve, it helps to release the anger. It helps to release the sadness. It helps to heal the body. It helps to heal the mind, the soul. And it's really important to do that. Again, it's from my experience. And then, if we don't recognize that still small voice inside of us, there's this thing that happens with that where it gets louder. Like there's this intuitive voice inside of us. You can call it God, you can call it your heart, you can call it intuition, whatever you want. But if we don't listen to that still small voice, or that little cell talking to us and telling us, hey, if we let that keep going on and on, eventually there's going to be a proverbial 2x4. I hope all of you know what that is. It smacks you on the side of your head, and it's going to wake you up, and then you're going to go, okay, I'm not doing this anymore, right? And sometimes that's important for us because we're not listening to that still small voice. And so usually what happens is something's going to go wrong in your life, or something's going to go bad in a relationship. That's when the 2x4 hits, and that's when we get to wake up. So what happens when we get to wake up is we get to look at things a little bit differently, and than we usually do. How we relate to somebody, how we relate to ourselves, how we change the behaviors that we create in our lives. And keep in mind that I have to say this, as children, we didn't know any better. So as children, when we went through something, it wasn't our fault that we didn't know this stuff back then. Now, as adults, it's our responsibility to shift that. And that helps to bring us into a space of raising that vibration. And so it took me like many years with my experience with my kids and my family for me to see what I needed to change in myself. And let me tell you, many years is 30 plus years, and it was not an easy journey. And I'm still on the journey. I am not, I wouldn't be here probably if I was fully enlightened or whatever. But the result on this planet with ourselves is inner peace. Now, saying inner peace, you also have one other option, and it's the hardest one you can have. You can just make that choice to change the direction in your life the minute that you feel something is off. It's really hard to do that because we've never been taught that. And so what that does is you go find someone who you resonate with, and you work with that until you're done, and you'll find somebody else, and you keep moving from one place to the other, whatever that looks like for you, until it becomes you. And that all fits into both ideas, both the 2x4 and just the choice. So the last thing is, it's not easy. Most of us are going to allow the pain because that's what we know. We know pain is our comfort zone, because on the other side of pain is freedom, and we don't know what that looks like. We don't know what it feels like. We're so used to what the pain feels like that we don't know how to jump onto the other side. But that's what this is about, is learning about yourself, being gentle with yourself, taking care of yourself, going through the dark nights of the soul, which are not fun. However, they're useful, and getting to know yourself to the point where you can just be who you are. And that's the most important thing I feel in connecting with spirit, in connecting with unconditional love, and in connecting with Mother Earth and Father Sky, or however you God, however you want to see that. So I think that's about it. Did I do okay?
You did fantastic.
Thank you for coming along with me on this journey. More to come. Peace.